with Miss Olive. Hey everybody, so today we are going to work on making a pinch pot with an expressive face. We have our Model Magic clay. A couple other things you might need is your ruler, your pair of scissors, and one of your paintbrushes. We're going to use these as clay tools today. So I've also got my plastic here so I can wrap things up that I'm not actively using, because remember it's air dry clay. So you want to make sure that if you're not actively using it, you wrap it up. Before we get started, I want you guys to play with your clay a little bit. So maybe stretch it out, fold it, squish it, see how it works. This is a tactile medium, so you have to, play with it with your hands. So let's go ahead and break our lump of clay. I just have one package here into 3 balls. We're going to do 3 simple techniques. First, let's practice making a ball of clay. So I'm going to sort of generally get it into the shape I want it, just pinching it with my fingers, and then just roll it in your hands until you get a nice little ball. That's the first thing we're going to practice doing. Okay. Next, we're going to practice making a cube. You can apply these techniques to any geometric shape. So I'm going to start with generally a ball, and then using the table, I will press the clay to get those nice flat edges. And like I said, you can do this with any geometric form, like a pyramid or whatever. So using the table as a flat surface, then just kind of work it into the shape. Just remember, you can use the table as a tool. So the last thing we're going to do is practice making coils. A coil is basically just like a long snake tube of clay. So I start just by squishing it in my hand, getting that shape going. I'm going to roll it in my hands just a little bit to get it going, and then using the table, gently roll back and forth until you get kind of like the desired length and thickness of it. This is something you're going to need to practice. It's not as easy as it looks. Okay, so once you have that, you can take your scissors if you need to cut off a chunk and cut off a chunk. That way you're not pinching it and stretching it to get different lengths and amounts of your clay. Cool. So now that we have some basic techniques, let's go ahead and grab all of our clay and squish it back together, because we're going to start by making the pinch pot. As the name suggests, a pinch pot is made by pinching your clay until it is like the shape and size of the pot that you want. So we're going to use one whole package of clay for the pot, and then we have the other package of clay for making the facial features and stuff. So you start by kind of just jamming your thumb into it. Notice how I'm supporting it with my other hand, and then supporting it with your other hand, just go around and start pinching it up to create your walls. I'm making sure I'm using the pads of my fingers, like the pinchy parts, so I don't get any weird divots or anything in it. This clay is super squishy, so anything you do, you just got to make sure that you are supporting the other side of it. So I'm using the table, kind of getting into that shape. Really any tool you have available you can use to create the shape that you want. So supporting it, pinching it, just working the edges until I'm, getting the desired shape and size. It's really all about being gentle with it. The clay will do whatever you tell it to. I'm also using the table here to get a nice flat bottom so it stands up on its own. Yep, just continue working it, paying attention to the edges, paying attention to the thickness of your walls. You want to try and make the walls the same thickness all the way around. Right now what I'm doing is I'm tapping the lip very gently on the table to try and give it a nice flat top so it's not all lumpy and weird. So working at it until we get an even consistency in the wall shape. I'm kind of twisting it now to form it exactly how I want it. So I want to try and get this vessel just about 2 inches tall. I think that'll work well for the amount of clay that we have. So I'm going to continue to pinch it, making the walls a little bit thinner and pulling the clay up so I'm giving the pot some height. Measure it again. Getting there pretty close. And it doesn't have to be exactly 2 inches, but I think 2 inches is a good starting height, and it will give you enough space on the pot to, like, enough area to sculpt a face onto. Pretty good, almost 2 inches, close enough. So I'm going to set this aside because I'm going to sculpt my facial features separately and then attach them onto it. Yep, so I got that. I'm going to put it aside so I don't accidentally mess it up while I'm working, trying to keep my work area clear-ish. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up the other package of clay and start making facial features and stuff. So I will show you just basic techniques for making things. I do want you playing with this. There's really no wrong way to go about this, so whatever works for you, but I'm going to show you just some super simple ways to make different facial features. So when I'm opening this, I'm being careful not to totally mutilate the package because the clay that I'm not actively using, I'm going to just set back in that package and wrap it up so it doesn't dry out, but I'm just going to squish it around for a little bit, get it a nice workable shape. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab some of that clay, take the rest of it, put it back in the package so it doesn't dry out. And the first thing we're going to make are some feet. So I'm going to show you how to make little like kitty cat or bunny rabbit feet. So I'm going to make a little coil of clay. Cutting it in half so I have clay for 2 feet. And I'm going to shape it into kind of a teardrop shape, and I'm just, just messing with it until it gets to that point. Flattening it out just an itty bit because it's going to be sitting underneath the pot, so it can't be too round, otherwise the thing will fall over. Okay, now I'm going to take my scissors and cut my toes. So I'm making 2 cuts. That separates the end of the clay into 3 little pieces to make 3 little, like, bunny rabbit type toes. I'm forming them separately and apart just to make sure they're round and they look good. And then once I have those toe shapes that I really like, I'm going to kind of press it back together so that it looks like, an animal foot. There's 1 foot. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing to my other lump of clay. You don't have to put feet on your pinch pot, but I think it's like a really nice little, it separates it from the table and kind of makes it its own thing instead of something that just has a flat bottom. So cut those toes, form them nicely. And once I have the toes how I like it, squish it back together. I'm going to flatten it just a little bit, like I said, so it doesn't, so the little pot doesn't fall off. Okay? This clay is weird. You just touch it to each other and it sticks. There's not a whole lot of work there. So I'm going to take the pot now and set it right on top of my feet. Gently press, very gently, just to squish the clay together. There, I've got some little feet on there. The lighting is really terrible. I apologize. There we go. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna start to make something else, but at this point I realized that the pot is falling over. I didn't weight it correctly, so you need to make a little thing that stands up on its own. So I realized that it was slumping backwards, so I just took a little teeny tiny chunk of clay and kind of stuck it under there, like under its bottom, so it was even and it didn't fall over. Just like when you have a table, or like with a short leg or something, stick something under it so it doesn't wiggle. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the mouth. That's the lowest feature on there, so I think that's an easy starting point. So yeah, here we go. Taking a little bit of my clay, I'm gonna make some coils for my lips. And I realize now that I don't want to attach the lips just directly onto the pot, because I think, like, if I mess it up, then I'm going to have to start over. So what I'm doing now is I'm making a little backing for my mouth so that when I can make the entire mouth completely and then just stick that whole thing on there. So I'm going to make a little smile. So I've got the back of my little smile. Using my paintbrush, I'm going to use that to make some, what do they call that? The Cupid's bow, like the top of the lip. So I'm shaping the lips, attaching it to the little backing I made. Let's go ahead and make the bottom lip so it's just a coil. And it's a really small coil, so I'm just using my fingers to roll it out. Set that on there, give it a little bit of gentle pressure so it sticks. And I think it'd be kind of cute if I gave this guy little buck teeth. So I'm making teeny tiny little front teeth now. And you don't need a whole lot of pressure to make this clay stick, so I'm just making little balls, kind of flattening them to look a little bit like teeth, and setting them in there. Okay? Once I get this exactly how I want it, see little buck teeth? I'm going to gently pick up this whole thing so I don't squish it, figure out where I want to put it on the pot, and just set it on there and very, very gently press so that it sticks. I'm using my paintbrush now to get exactly the shapes that I want in there. Check it out. Little smile. Okay, let's go ahead and make a nose next, because I'm working from like the bottom up. I got my little smile, so let's grab some clay. The initial shape is like a triangle sort of, right? So I'm making like a three-sided pyramid, essentially. I'm using the table to get the flat spot on the back. Just pinch it until it's the shape I want it. And then to make the nostrils, I'm going to go ahead and grab my paintbrush again and just press in there. And that gives me, that's a really easy way to make, you know, a nostril shape. Let's see if you can see this better. Okay, just continuing to work it until it is exactly how I want it. The end of your paintbrush is a great clay working tool. Okay, little nose there. I'm working the bridge kind of flat a little bit, the bridge of the nose, just so it sits on there proper. Figure out exactly where I want to put it, press it on there, and then gently smooth out some of the edges. So I'm using the paintbrush now as like a smoothing tool. I'm just barely pressing. Ta-da! Now the nose. Okay. So, let's go ahead and make some eyeballs. Measuring to make sure I've got the right amount of clay to make the size eye that I want. Eyeball would not be complete without eyelids, so I'm going to take a little bit of clay and roll it out into a coil. Just a really little coil there. Flattening it out, so I'm just pressing it with my finger to make it flat. Excuse me. And then I'm going to wrap. So this is the lower eyelid. Wrapping that little flattened coil around it, and then I'll take my scissors and trim off the extra. Because if I pull it, it's just going to stretch and get weird. You'll see it once it's done. The lighting will get better. Okay, take that clay, roll it into a coil, flatten it out, and wrap it around the outer edge of the other side to create both a bottom and an upper eyelid. It needs a pupil, I think, so I'm going to take my paintbrush and sort of press in where the pupil is. Okay, check it out. Eyeball. Take that. Gently lift my pinch pot and stick the eyeball where the eyeball goes. So now we're going to repeat the process on the other side because this little guy has 2 eyeballs. Starting off with the ball, flattening it just a little bit so it sits nicely on the pinch pot. Make some more eyelids. Flatten that coil a little. I've got the lower lid on there. I wrapped that on there and then just trimmed it, fixing that edge with my fingers. Go ahead and do the other eyelid. Make sure it's formed exactly how I want it before I put it on. Add the pupil. And gently attach the other eye. What should we do next? I think I'm going to give it a little... Which part are we doing actually? I can't remember. Oh, okay. So we're making eyebrows now. So what I did was I rolled out a coil, and I'm going to use my scissors and just make some little itty bitty snips in it to give it texture so it kind of looks like hair. And that's going to be one eyebrow. Very gently attach it. Same thing on the other side. Take that little coil I made, put some snips in it just to give it a little bit of texture. And I just want to emphasize what I am making here. You do not have to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing this just to show you different techniques. I want you to make your pinch pot face your own. There, little funky eyebrows. Alright, what's next? In one of those examples on the slideshow from earlier this week, I saw one of the pots had little like hands on it, and I thought that was really cute. So we're going to go ahead and make some hands. So I'm rolling kind of a thicker coil, flattening out one end of it just a little and shaping it kind of like a mitten, so like a human mitten, and then I'm just going to snip out some fingers. So I've got all, 5 fingers in there. And just like we did with the toes, snip it, kind of separate them a little bit and form them exactly how you want. I'm gonna roll out the wrist a little and then snip that off. I'm supporting the pot from the inside right now because I don't want to accidentally collapse it. So I placed it on there and I'm smoothing out, like, I guess the shoulder joint just a little bit. One little hand on his cheek. We're going to repeat the process, symmetry and all, and do the same thing on the other side. So kind of flatten out the edge of that coil to make a mitten shape. Snip, snip. So snipping the fingers. Again, sorry about the lighting. This camera that I'm using keeps auto-adjusting the light balance and it's annoying. Shape out the fingers exactly how I want them. I'm gonna roll out that wrist a little bit and then very gently supporting from the other side. Place it on there and smooth that a little. Little hands. Last thing I'm going to do, just in case you guys are interested in it, I'm going to make some ears. I think that'll be a nice, fun thing and make this guy look real goofy. So I'm making just a general, flattened oval to get a basic ear shape. Flattening one side of it so I can attach it. Shape it with my paintbrush. And then gently attach. Same thing on the other side. Make a little flat oval. Shape it with the paintbrush. And attach. And I think I'm gonna call this guy good. I think that's, I don't want to add anything else. Alright, maybe I do. I haven't decided yet. Looks pretty good, right? Okay, so I'm looking at my clay bag and I noticed there's kind of a bit of extra clay in there. If you have extra, you can totally make something else if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and use up all my clay on my pinch pot thing. So I think it'd be cool to give him like a funky hairdo. So all I'm doing is I'm gonna take, some of this clay, roll it out into a coil. Twist it. So I'm rolling it out into a coil. Since this clay is so stretchy, I'm just gonna, at this point, go ahead and stretch it out. Fold it in half, and I'm twisting it to give it like kind of a fun hair texture. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just one way of doing it. I want you to play with it and make it your own. So I'm just gonna take that little twisty thing I made, place it around the lip, or the top, so the lip of the pot. Very gently attach it so I don't accidentally squish my dude. He's got kind of a little crown of hair there. I think it would look cool if I did another layer of that hair. So I'm going to add another layer, so just kind of making the coil. Stretch it out, fold it in half, twist it up. Put it right on top of that other coil I did, and then I see it's a little long here, so I'm just gonna kind of carefully pinch off that end so it matches up nicely. I'm just working with it to get it exactly how I want it. Just manipulating the clay. And I think it's done. I'm pretty happy with it. So that's it. Yay!